Welcome to Blue Collar Mystics, the under-the-hood approach to the depths of human consciousness. So many mysteries, so little time, so many big words. That's why we aim to take the mystical and make it practical, usable in your everyday life. And we want to hear from you. We want to hear your story. What happened when you started asking yourself the real questions? Like, who am I? What is this? Is it a hologram? Is this some kind of weird cosmic joke? Hey, these are the questions that we are trying to get to the bottom of as we explore the final rabbit hole together here as Blue Collar Mystics. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the show, the podcast, Blue Collar Mystics, the under-the-hood approach to the mysteries of human consciousness. I see we have a couple people already on Rockfin joining the live stream. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, hop in the chat, say hello, welcome, thanks for being here. Glad to see you. Happy Tuesday afternoon. I've got a great show for you. I'm very excited to talk about some really deep ideas and connect with Eva Payne. Before we hop into it, I just want to do a quick little promo and let people know I have a show that I'm hosting in Jacksonville, Florida for the Georgia-Florida game this Friday, November 1st, the night before the big game. It's going to be a really fun show. It's completely unique and different, and I'm super excited about it. It's like a Georgia versus Florida. We got some Georgia comedians from Athens here. And then we've got some Florida comedians down from Jacksonville, and we're going to be roasting each other's teams, doing some sets, having some fun. Really excited about it and super looking forward to it. Please do come and check it out if you're in the area. And if you know some people who are out there, holler at them and let them know that it's going on. I'm trying to promote this stuff a little bit better. Also, my Path to Purpose course, still free on Patreon, will be for until ... No reason not to keep it that way. I've really enjoyed connecting with everybody over there. Links for the Patreon in the description. Eva, thank you so much for coming on and hanging out with me today. It is a pleasure to have you. We've already had a great conversation even before we hit the record button. So welcome.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate being here. And hello to everyone out there.
Yeah. So Eva has a podcast, Ideas to Human Better. And so I named the title of this show, How to Human Better. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We were talking a little bit about how silly war is off air, fighting and doing those types of things. But Eva has quite a range of interests, and her podcast focuses she's got a lot of really good guided meditations. So I highly recommend you all check that out. The link tree is down below so you can see all the stuff that she's working on. She also does some retreats and is an advocate of psychedelics, which I wouldn't know too much about. But we'll talk a little bit about that, Eva. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you kind of got into this field and started playing around with consciousness.
I
know that's a big question. Here, let me start with the main course.
Okay, I will say, I came here this way to be legit and honest. I can remember being in second grade. I lived in West LA on the swings in my backyard. I was always on a swing for some reason, something about that movement, but I would think to myself, I am a person, I've got a body. Something is looking through these eyes. What is this? What's going on here? So even at a super young age, I've always been super curious. What are we doing here? What is this place about? My mom never forced us into any religion. She studied all different kinds of stuff and didn't care. So I had a lot of freedom. I would go to the mall when the malls used to have bookstores inside of them. And I would spend half the time in the section with the Bibles and all those books. And then the other section and the New Age, palm reading and astrology. I just wanted to take in as much information as I could. So I think it's just been something that I really came here with, to be honest. And it's just grown over the years through so many experiences.
That's cool. What would you say would be one of those catalyzing experiences that's really kind of set you on that course? Is there anything that comes to mind specifically?
I think that and maybe for a lot of people out there, I think when you go through a really challenging time and you start to question everything on a deeper level. So, I'm always curious. I would consider myself like more Christian like, I guess, as a young person. Like I just kind of felt like Jesus is love and I always felt really connected to that. And then I became Mormon in my early 20s and I did that for 16 years. I have 6 kids. I live in the suburbs of Los Angeles. And then I got divorced at 37 and that led me into now what? Like, now what? And at 21, I started a nonprofit. I started a summer camp for kids impacted by HIV and AIDS because, like, the universe told me to. I was a theater major. I went to school in Nebraska. I thought I was going to be like the next Ryan Seacrest or an actress or doing the news. And I just felt this call to start this summer camp. And so I did that for many, many years. And then when I went through this divorce and I knew I was going to have to transition out of that program, out of that nonprofit, because less and less kids are being born HIV positive. Thank goodness, as a nonprofit, you always want to like not have a need anymore for that thing. And I thought, okay, well, what's next? Like, how do I find my flow? And I would sit in therapy and I'd say, like, I've lost my flow. I've lost my flow. Like, I know what it feels like when your essence, when like who you are as a person lines up with your doingness, and then you're out serving in the world. So it fills your cup and you're doing something good for someone else. And I really believe that's what all humans are supposed to do, maybe supposed to do. And I thought, can I reinvent this for myself? Can I find the next thing that like really fuels my soul and also fills a need in this world? And so I started really researching, like, is anyone else talking about living in flow beyond flow states, beyond like the 2 or 3 hours of working on something and time flying by? Like, how do we genuinely align like everything else in nature? And yeah, I found that people could not shift, hence psychedelics. Like people could not shift, even though they had all the tools and they knew they needed to get out of that job or end that relationship or whatever. And so I'd go on these really long walks and listen to like hours and hours and hours of podcasts and be like, universe, this cannot be it. What is the answer? What is the answer? And just like HIV and AIDS, I didn't really know anyone impacted by HIV and AIDS. The signs just kept coming in. And so my acronym for FLOW is following life's opportunities wholeheartedly. So I'm like, what is the opportunity? What am I not picking up on? And then psilocybin. I'm like, I don't know anything about drugs. Like, I don't even know where to like, why are you showing me this? And the more I leaned into that, wow, like just propelled my life. If you looked at the Eva from 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago to who I am today, totally different person, still in that same vein of like trying to figure things out. But I just have such a broader perspective maybe than I did back then.
No, that is fascinating. I mean, what a background, right? From Christianity to Mormonism and into psychedelics.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you mind sharing a little bit about like if you've had a psychedelic experience and what like your first one might have been like coming into
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, sure. So when I first started, when I'm out there like in the world going like, I don't even know where to get this. Why do you keep showing me this universe? It was right when Oregon was about to decriminalize. My sister lives in Astoria, Oregon, and I walked into an herbal shop in Portland looking for lion's mane and became friends with the shop owner. And he's basically like, you need some psilocybin? I got you. And at the same time, my brother was like, I got some in the freezer. And he lived like an hour away from me in the same week. So I'm like, okay, what do I do with this now? Like so many people out there who now reach out to me. They're like, I don't even know where to start. I tried this once when I was 20. And so I just started low and slow and kind of building a relationship. And one of my very first interactions, I mean, I didn't even try cannabis till I was like 38. So I was like, and no alcohol, like
Right.
super, super PG. And, but it was like a low dose of psilocybin. And then about 2 or 3 hours in, took a hit of cannabis. And I'm telling you what, my boyfriend and I at the time, we were telepathic. It was so bizarre. It was so bizarre, not word for word, but to be able to be in a space and like know what the other person is feeling, like feeling that person's energy. And I was like, there is something here. I don't know what this is, but there is something here to explore. And is this just me, or do other people feel this? Do other people experience this? And so then my very kind of bigger journeys with psilocybin, they weren't very visual. It was more like just really like I already think a lot. I have a lot of ideas and very big concepts and ideas, but man, it took me to like really cool, unique places. And that psilocybin for me seems to be it's a lot of like the woes of the world. They're not really beautiful journeys for me. They're much more of like sparks of things from like what the world used to be like, or how the world could be, or how humanity is supposed to be. It's like I just get these like insights or ahas. But the psychedelic for me, that honest to goodness, probably the most profound experiences of my life was with 5-MeO DMT. So I've had 3 experiences with that in the last 3 years, like 1 a year. And the reason I even went to that was because I was running these psilocybin retreats and stacking these other healing modalities, but I could sit with like a lot. Let me just say a lot. And I'm here, I'm present. I could literally have a conversation with you. Like I can just hold the medicine really easily. And my friend who owned the herbal shop was like, you need to know what people go through when they go through these journeys. And so I was like, all right, well, I don't know. I'm not really down for ayahuasca. I don't really want to be throwing up. I'm not good with pain. And I had a friend tell me, you can heal through pain or you can heal through love. So I chose the love route, which is like the 5-MeO, even though it's a takeoff and it's a burst of 20 minutes. But I am telling you what my very, very first experience with that, I was in a ceremony 3 years ago with, I don't know, about 30 other people in the room, 20 of which were participants. And after the takeoff and cursing at the top of my lungs, apparently, I pop out into this space and I literally see everybody glowing with like a goldish white aura. I feel like this is how it's supposed to be. It is complete love, complete. There's no fear, there's no trauma in this space. I'm starting to like remember almost like, oh my gosh, this is how it's supposed to be. This is how it's supposed to be. And then the crazy thing is, I literally see all these like, I don't know, maybe 20 or so light bodies, and they're like this, looking at me. Well, I don't know, because like they're just light. And I'm hearing in my head, she knows, avatar, avatar, the veil, the veil. And how I understood that was these bodies are just avatars. There's a veil that keeps us from the spirit world that is around us all the time. And in that spirit world, it is love, it is wholeness, it is peace. It is like they knew I was coming. They knew I was supposed to be there. And as I came back into myself, I mean, a little bit of other things happened, but as I came back into myself, I could feel like this veil, and oh my gosh, it's so A+ to its inventor, like the separation from that other space into this space. But also it's like, I'm not a fan of it. Like, I feel like this should be less or dropped, or I'm not sure, but I said out loud, oh my gosh, this world is such a, I used a curse word,
You
show.
can say that.
Okay, such a shit show. Like I said this out loud, and then I felt so incredibly nauseous in my body. And I went and wrote down like psilocybin is the baby step. Psilocybin is like the introduction. And then my second experience was just all love. And my third experience, which was 4 weeks ago now.
Mm.
Ooh, I went in much calmer, like I wasn't afraid. I pop out into a space that feels like ancient Egypt. And I remember my whole experience. And most people don't remember their experience on 5-MeO. They just remember love or something. But like, I was literally talking to my higher self. I could see the poison. I just call it the poison. It's like a darkness. It's almost like the nothing from the never ending story. And it is the polar opposite of the love. So the love that is so pure, it is the absolute opposite. And they are so far apart. And it's so heavy to hold that space in the physical form, to be a conscious and aware in that space. And it was like focus, I just think of it like my higher self. I didn't really even understand what that really was until this experience. in a more complete way. And it was like, focus, Eva, come here. And so I said, okay, I'm here. And it started showing me all of these experiences in my life and how this experience and this psychedelic journey led to this. And you had to know this before you could know this.
Hmm.
And then I kept saying, I understand. Okay. Like I'm trying. And then I started saying, I'm not going to remember. And it was telling me, it's okay. It's enough. And then it showed me, my acronym for love was not mine. It came from somewhere else, is live open, value everything.
Hmm.
So I said that out. I was trying to say as many things out loud as I could for the gals who were holding this space. I kept thanking them. Thank you for holding this space. Thank you for holding this space. And I said, live open, value everything. Live open, value everything. Like, don't forget this. Don't forget. And the last thing I saw before I came back was the pyramid with the all-seeing eye. And I couldn't tell, like, bad or good. It just showed it to me really quick. And then I was back in my body again, and I could feel like a tightness in my throat. And I'm like, oh, it's stuck right here. Like there's something stuck still, like right here. And then the next day we did a lower dose of it, and I felt that stuckness again. But what also came to me was the poison is in the attachments. The poison is in the attachments. It kept saying over and over in my head, the poison is in the attachments. And we're giving ourselves the clues. And I heard that in a psilocybin journey as well. We're giving ourselves the clues. We're in an escape room. And we all have a different piece to the puzzle. And so that's why we have to like come together. Like, you know something, I know something, she knows something. And if we could just be open and communicate, there's a better way to live. I don't even know what that is, but it's not all the suffering. All the suffering is just crazy to me. It's nonsense. It feels like a little bit's okay, but the amount that there is so much. So there's some journeys for you, and some
Wow.
things
Yeah.
have come to me.
Sounds pretty chill.
Yeah. Right.
No, that sounds amazing. Very, very cool. Like, and I think a lot of that you are explaining, it fits in with many other people's models, experiences. I mean, I can say for myself, it really does. I really do think that we each are like a puzzle piece. We each have our place within the grand, puzzle or what have you. So I really like that you kind of came back with that. I agree with the love thing. I've had some similar experiences as well. And it's so cool because, like for me, I was like maybe a little bit ambitious with this stuff, especially younger in college. And I'm like, oh yeah, let's party, and to hear someone who you've gone through, the beginning of your life and been, Mormon, Christian, not using any substances. And then you have this experience and it's still essentially kind of the same thing, or at least similar, right? And I think that's really fascinating. So I just want to ask real quick about the all-seeing eye. So you're saying like you couldn't tell if it was, good or bad. Like there's so many
because it was just like it was like, oh, she's leaving, like because you can only stay in that space for so long, and then you come back through the veil, and it's like it's almost like dreaming. Like, when you dream, when you first wake up out of a dream, if you can hold and you don't open your eyes yet and you can kind of replay your dream in your head, you can remember more of it. So the way that I see the veil, it's like it tries to strip you of whatever information you get from there. And so it knew like, oh, and I've been writing down my dreams for like a couple months now, just trying to remember them. So I think that maybe that's why I'm able to remember more stuff from there. But it was like the last image, like it just like kind of came out at me. And I just saw a pyramid with an eye. And I was like, okay, what about, like, I wanted to be like, okay, no. Like, I have so many questions, like, wait, good or bad? Like, what is this going on? But I did sit with a therapist who does integration, and she does an integration that was actually like downloaded into this woman who lives in like Denmark when she was in the temple of Isis. Really cool, but it's almost like a dream interpretation of your psychedelic journeys. And so when we went through this journey, she was asking me about that. And the way that like I kind of see it right now is it's neutral. like it's just an observer. It's like I'm here just to observe what is happening with all of this. And what I don't know, this is just Eva interpretation, like a dream. So maybe someone
Sure.
has a better response. But what I imagined was like humans are living in this dome, like a reverse snow globe. So like even though we're breathing air, the way that I kind of saw it in this experience through this integration analysis, if you will, was that we're all drowning in water. Like we're all inside of this tank and like swimming about, doing our thing or whatever. And when you come out, when you take a psychedelic, you step out of this and you're actually breathing for the first time. You're actually like experiencing true love, true wholeness, true divinity, true like connection to source, God, whatever. And then we go back into this like place, this, whatever this is. But that the all seeing eye is just this observer of the whole thing. Like it's just up here, like, isn't that interesting? Look at what's happening. Like it's not really good or bad. It's just is.
Just
And
observing,
yeah, I don't know though. I
documenting,
could
note taking.
totally be wrong because I've, of course, went down all the rabbit holes with Illuminati and all the stuff. And like, I don't know, maybe I'm here for that. Maybe that's real. Maybe that's all a thing too. Maybe it's not good. Um, but I don't know. Maybe it's just neutral.
I like that. I mean, I think it just, to me, like, because I jumped down that rabbit hole pretty hard too at
Yeah.
the beginning of my, awakening, whatever.
Yeah.
It sounds so corny, but it really was like that's how I started to interpret the world, and then I saw it in this very negative type of
Mhm.
light. But what I've noticed from that is that it keeps a lot of people in victimhood. It keeps a lot of people very, very stuck, and they just see reasons why they can't. And then when other people are successful, it's because of this or they sold out or whatever.
Yeah.
And that I don't think is a very healthy view either. And I've seen that symbol in different ways at different times in my life. Like I've
Yeah.
seen it like, oh God, it's scary. It's the Illuminati. And then I've seen it as like, well, maybe that's my mind's eye. Maybe that's,
Yeah.
just what I'm seeing. And I should listen to the, what I've imagined from within. And very much like you're talking about the dream interpretation. I love that. By the
Mhm.
way, that's something that resonates really deeply with me. And I think the psychedelic experience and the dream experience are pretty similar. They have
Yeah.
similarities for sure, where perhaps you're not even necessarily in your body if you're doing something like 5-MeO, very likely you just blast right out. It's like an astral projection or something. I think that's kind of what happens to us at night as well. We go
Mhm.
into the space of variations,
Yeah.
infinity, what else do they call it? The damn it, why can't I think of it?
Akashic records, astral plane.
Yeah. Akashic Records is what I
Yeah.
was thinking of.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. And so then we come back and we're like, oh, and then just like you said, we wake up and we're and then that just like kind of fades away. But
Yeah, but if you can hold it, and then what I loved about this program, and I believe it's called Awaken to the Dream. The therapist who went through it, she came to my very first retreat 3 years ago, and she was looking for all of these different integration programs out there, and then found this one. I believe the woman's out of Denmark. I could be wrong, but Awaken to the Dream. So it's not just like tell me about this and let me pull things out, but then it's like how does this relate back to your real life? Like where do you think of this? Where do you think of pink dolphins, or where do you think of whatever came up in your dream? So it makes it more practical. So it was like I went through this experience and I could just be out of my mind because I took some psychedelic and but also maybe there's clues in there that can really help me to be a better person and help me to live more in flow with my gifts and help me to serve the world, or whoever comes into my existence, whoever comes into my awareness. It's like out of the billions of people in the world, handful of people come into your awareness. And so what are you going to do with that? Like what if you were kind to them? What if you gave people the benefit of the doubt? What if you tried to be soft and offer forgiveness and grace for where people are at in their journey, and especially for yourself? We are so hard on ourselves. I serve people all the time who are my gosh, it's like that victimhood, like you talked about, it's like we're conditioned to be there, and it just feels like we're feeding the poison. Like
Yeah.
we're literally making this poison stronger by putting our awareness on it, by wallowing in it. And it's like, what if we just chose out of systems that don't serve us? It's not like we need to fix things. We just need to reinvent things. We need to reinvent our education system. We need to come back to better foods. Like, why is anybody pushing a button on red food dye anymore? Like, we all know that's terrible for us. There's got to be ways that we can human better, and we just need to start choosing it. And all I need to do is what I can do, but I also need you to do what you can do. And so that's why I think psychedelics are so important, because I don't know how people shift otherwise. I was coaching women for like a year, and I don't know how therapists do it, week after week, talking about the same thing. It's like a broken record, stuck on the same pattern in a job that doesn't serve them. Fear of leaving. My acronym for fear is focusing energy on alternate realities. It's like, if I leave this job, what's
So
going to
good.
happen? If I break up, what's going to happen? If I blah blah blah, they just make up all these stories that you have no idea what's going to happen. And it's like, if you're not happy doing where you're at or what you're doing, then I don't know, like you're feeding the poison. It just feels like there's a different way. And I think psychedelics help us to clean slate that ruminating mind and help us to create space for patterns and beliefs that'll better serve us and humanity.
I love that. Yeah, I've for a very, very long time looked for solutions, answers. How do we fight this? How do we destroy
Yeah.
the system? But it's like, dude, it's not about destroying
No,
anything. The more you try
no.
to fight it, the more you're actually advocating for, you're giving it energy, feeding the poison, like you're saying, like the never ending story. I love that analogy, by the way,
Yeah.
'cause I totally grew up on that movie.
Thanks. Me too.
So good. But yeah, I mean, it's like the more that we actively fight against something, you're actually giving it more energy, you're giving it more
Yeah.
attention. So how can we just create new things outside of those systems or alternative type of things instead? I think really that is the
Yeah.
better approach
Think
overall.
about think about like Kodak film. I remember getting my master's program. I have a master's in leadership, and they talked about the company Kodak and how Kodak did not want to go to digital. They just wanted to stay with film, film, film. We're never going to move to digital. That's never going to happen. And so what happened to Kodak? Like, I don't even know if they're still around. Like, maybe, out there somewhere trying to like make a comeback with a Polaroid camera, but
Mhm.
everything went to digital. And it's like, if we just create better systems, people will choose it. We just have to. Okay, as a great example, there's a woman out there in Austin, Texas. She's created a school called 2 Hour Learning. And I'm like, as a mother of 6 kids, I'm like, we need better school systems. These school systems, I could go on and on about just how they do not look for the child's gifts and talents and interests. It's like, why are we still teaching stuff that you're never ever going to use and you're not even good at, and you got to get tutors to become good at? Like, you will outsource that in your life if it does not interest you, if you are not good at it. And so what she created was these students sit for 2 hours in an AI program that teaches to their ability. So they spend like maybe 20 minutes a day in history, math, English, whatever. And then the rest of the school day is like on very practical things. So she's got like 6th graders renting out Airbnbs, like building companies, designing things. Their PE is they went and did like what was it called? Like one of those like races, where you're like, you get in the mud and then you're like climbing over things or
Oh,
whatever. Like,
mud obstacle course.
yes, like that's their PE. And
Yeah.
so it was like they're training for that. And so it was
Field
very
training.
like also communication skills and like practical things. And so and her kids are testing at the highest, statewide, and then SAT, ACT, even though that's probably just outdated. So they're doing really well. So she just said, I'm going to create a new system. And then here it is thriving. And now there's all these moms out there who are like, how do I get your school in my community? What do I need to do? How do we do this? So that's what we need to do, is just what fascinates you? What interests you? What are your gifts and talents? And start leaning into those things, even if it's a hobby at first, even if it's something that you're like, I don't even know if I'd be good at it. I'm telling you, the thing that you're probably the most afraid of
Hmm.
is probably the thing for you. The thing that you're most worried, if I do this, what will they think? But you really want to do it, like starting a podcast, right? Or writing that book or inventing that thing, whatever, or telling someone something that you've been thinking about for a long time, like see what happens. And perhaps that's just the thing. Because of course the poison would not want you to step into your gifts, because then what's going to happen to it? If you think of it as like a physical thing that needs energy or food or sustenance, and if you stop feeding that, because now you're putting your energy into something that actually fills you up and fills a need in this world, it's like that's living in flow. That just makes the nothing go away. And then at the end of that movie, it's like, what do you want to create? It starts with a little spark. What do you want to create? And then it's like bringing all my friends back and the best story ever. And I feel like that's where we're at right now. I feel like we are coming out of the dark ages and we're about to create something so miraculous. It's like, I have seen it. I have seen it in visions, if you will. I don't really get visions, but it's just a knowingness. Um, I can see what's possible for humanity. And because I can take 5 total strangers and they feel like family at the end of 3 days. And if I can do that with any 5 people in the world, then I know there's so much more for us than whatever's going on out here saying that we're separate and there's stigma, us versus them, I'm better than you, my way versus your way. Like that's all the lie. That's all the poison.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So now that you mentioned bringing people together, let's talk a little
Yeah.
bit about retreats and how you got into that. Let's
Yeah.
explore.
Okay, so here's the thing. This is how things come to us, right? I'm sitting here like, what is my next thing? What is my next thing? I wrote a couple books. I'm coaching some people. I had 2 podcasts at the time. And I'm like, is this it? Is this it? Is it public speaking? Is it like, what am I supposed to do? And that's when psychedelics. And so I went and took my sister on a journey after listening to a podcast around a woman who does this. And it just kind of hit me like, Eva, you're supposed to be a medicine woman. Like you're supposed to do this. I'm thinking, what? I don't know anything about this. Okay, let me test it out. I always tell people, just try it. Just take a step forward, take the most loving step into it. And if it resonates, keep going. And if you find a lot of friction and it's not really working out, then maybe you got to tweak it. And so I took my sister on a journey right when Oregon decriminalized. She had been sober for a year. And I said, I've done all the research I can possibly do. I've read everything. I've listened to the therapeutic model. And I don't know, where do you get trained on how to take people through a journey? You just got to do it. And so I did. I took my sister on a journey, and on the plane ride home, the whole idea for the retreat popped into my head. And within 24 hours, I had the company incorporated. I had the website designed because I could see it. I had spent 23 years running summer camps, writing grants, bringing 100 kids together, 50 staff, 10 days long. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's a house with 4 to 6 people who are paying me, who I'm taking all the healing modalities that helped me through my divorce, all like the sound healing and the breath work and the guided meditation and community and the things from my summer camp, that sense of community. I know how to bring people together. And then you stack psilocybin into it. What would that model look like? How could we best support a journey? How do you prepare? How do you integrate? And so I just dreamt it up on a plane ride from Oregon to Los Angeles. And then it took me like 4 to 6 months to put it out into the universe. I'm like, I don't even know if anyone's going to sign up for this. And in January of 2022, right out of COVID, I held my first retreat in Oregon. I had 5 women sign up, 2 nurses who were burnt out, 2 therapists who were interested in this space, and a massage therapist out of Iowa. And did it. And it was way too busy. I had way too much stuff planned. But I have revised quite a bit since then. And I just finished my 51st retreat. So I've
Holy
done a
smokes.
lot of them in the last almost 3 years. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. 51 in 3 years, my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. I host 2 a month, except roughly 2 a month, back
Wow.
to back. Yeah. So 1 week a month, I'm gone. I'm either in Oregon, Colorado. Well, not Oregon kind of rolled back their decriminalization. So mostly Colorado now. And my goal is to create a documentary. Like, I really just think if the suburban moms who grew up on, Nancy Reagan, Say No to Drugs, could see the truth, could like see the truth of like what this medicine does and how gentle it is and how lives transform, they would be on the front lines of decriminalization, of just utilizing the medicine. Like, it doesn't even matter. Just, oh my gosh, it's not that hard to use. It's super friendly. It's you can't overdose, you really can't. I mean, maybe you can take too much, but not really. Start low and slow, build a relationship with it. Like, have someone there who loves you, have water, be at home where you feel safe. It's like, the earth is not making it hard for us to like come home to ourselves. And if you want to come to a retreat and like feel safe with people who have done this before and stack other modalities and give yourself a break and have someone bring you tea and cook your meals for you, and like, the thing is, the people who come and see me, they've never done breath work. They don't even know what that is. They've never sat in meditation. And I love leading guided meditation. That's like really what I see my future as. I see like SoFi Stadium, guided meditation, East Forest, Trevor Hall, like this combination, like filled with people who are really tapping into that heart brain coherence. And instead of like saying, like, giving all their energy to the football game or Taylor Swift or whoever, they're like bringing it in and sending it out to the world and down into the earth and up into the ether. I just think like, what could happen? And so many of these stadiums are on these ley lines, which I found out just like a year ago. I'm like, this is what we're supposed to do. Like, we're supposed to go into these stadiums and freaking meditate together and send out love into the world, But anyway, lots of ideas over here on
No,
how to
that's
make
cool.
things better.
No, that's very cool. I'm all for it. I'm all for big ideas. The bigger, the better. I love that you were in summer camps for 23. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
That's what like my degree is in, and I did a bunch of camp stuff. And I was an outward bound instructor for a while, and so
Yes.
been in that
Owen,
whole realm.
we are going to do a low dose summer camp. Well, it's going to happen in May, so it's kind of spring in Colorado. So I'm taking this summer camp idea with adults and a low dose of psilocybin. Like, I want to combine those two worlds together. Could you not see how that could be so incredibly healing for people to tap into that childlike wonder, that play, that climbing wall, zip line, plus a sound bath and a meditation and a low dose of the medicine so you can hold the space and get used to it. So I'm going to call it Camp Flow Life, because that's my retreats, Flow Life. And it's going to be in May. So if you want to come and be a counselor or lead something.
Camp counselor Bootsy, let's go. No, I mean, I loved camp. So what I noticed is, so I didn't get into, I only started working in camp. So I didn't grow up as a kid in them, but I did get to see a lot of my friends who were part of, like, that's how I got into it. They were like, hey, I'll recommend you to work for this thing. And it was like basically like camp adjacent. Like, we took kids, and during the school year they would come, we'd take them rafting and hiking and do those types of things. And then we did it out of a camp called Camp Michael. It's up in Toccoa, Georgia here. Really pretty area. But a lot of my friends had come up. It's an Episcopal camp. So they had all come up going to that camp. And so they had known each other for years, and different people had dated. And I just noticed that they were more mature. They were more mature than a lot of my friends who maybe didn't have those experiences, didn't come up through camp, and didn't have a lot of that, the background and stuff. So those folks were always tight knit. And whenever I got into that world, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I got to experience it later in life, and as, somebody who was kind of outside looking in, but I saw so much possibility and potential in camp. And then whenever, I'd go and work Coachella or whatever, and we would be camp counselors there, quote unquote, but
I mean, that's the power of that. Like, right. Because you're a young person. It's the first time that you're probably really away from home. You're getting to make choices, your own choices, where you don't have to ask for approval. Like, do you want to go do arts and crafts, or do you want to go swim, or so you get to start making some of your own choices. There's a lot of like firsts at camp, first love, first kiss, or whatever, that kind of stuff that sometimes happens. And there's just a lot of places where you feel challenged, whether it's down rapids or a challenge course or putting on a skit or a lip sync or dressing up. It's like you're kind of pushed outside your comfort zone just enough to allow that comfort zone to grow. And I could take kids from Podunk, Nebraska to East St. Louis, some of the most challenging neighborhoods where like they would never sing a camp song. They didn't even know what that was. Chicago, Colorado, like we would take these kids from all over the Midwest, whether they're from small towns or big cities, and you'd put them in a cabin together. And by the end of the week, they are best friends. Everyone's crying. Nobody wants to go home. They stay in touch. They feel better about themselves
Mhm.
and about life. I mean, we would have kids who would say, all I want, like my wish is to have this be another week, or all I want is to make sure I can come back next year. You know, it was like the staff and kids would get our logo tattooed on them when they
Yep.
got older.
Yep.
Like, this is like, it's tribal. I mean, it's like who we are, you know, we're meant to come together. And so these retreats, it's like my own cabin. That's totally what it feels like. I'm like, I've got 4 to 6 people and they're like my campers. And instead of doing I don't know, making bracelets, you know, we're doing art therapy. So it's just a little bit stepped up from that stuff, but it definitely has that same energy. And that's why I know you can take people from anywhere in the world, circling all the way back to what we said in the beginning, like nobody wants war. Nobody wants to hurt another person. Like if you really tap into who you are, you don't want that. Humans are simple. We want peace, we want love, we want purpose, we want connection. You know, we're basic. We want maybe some adventure.
Yeah.
And it's like, doesn't matter where you live. You know, no one wants to send their son or daughter out to hurt someone else. Nobody wants to do that themselves. You know, it's just like anytime that we feel discord with something or someone else, it's an indication to like look within. Like, where's this coming from? Hold a mirror up, you know, look at yourself. Like, where's this coming from? I mean, I understand like that saying in the Bible where Jesus is on the cross and he's like, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Like, I get it. I get the people who live in crazy town, quote unquote, you know, they're just living in that high stress and like they just don't know that that's not how it's supposed to be. Like they've only known that as a baseline. And I think that's why experiences like these retreats or with psychedelics or with a summer camp, you know, are so impactful because you see there's a different way. And if you've never known that or like truly embodied it, like you just know it logically, but it's not embodied, then you can't look for it again. You can't replicate it. But once you know it, you can't unknow it. You can't unfeel it. It is a felt experience, these connections that can happen for people. And you don't have to have a psychedelic. Just go to any old retreat, you know, not any old, but yeah, just go. As an adult, you will feel that same kind of connection like the kids at summer camp do.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, I think people are very, very, yeah, I agree with you. The sentiment, you know, forgive them. They don't what they do. They're just lost in the delusion, you know, they just don't get it. But yeah, I learned so much. And it's a kind of a joke, right? Because I have a degree in recreation and leisure studies. It's the
I love it
stupidest sounding
too.
degree ever.
It's
People are like,
awesome.
what do you do with that, dude? Are you like Parks and Rec, or like, are you like a park ranger or what, or like a gym coach? And I'm like, well, actually, you know, I learned a lot. Actually, I read Csikszentmihalyi's book, The Flow
Mhm.
Theory, in college, and they really made the whole major so much harder than it could have been. I picked it because I was like, this will be fucking easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, I got to graduate just to appease my parents so I could show them the receipt, you know?
Yeah.
And what wound up happening though, is it put me on a completely different trajectory. And I wound up doing my internship in Costa Rica for Outward Bound. And I learned a lot about dynamics in groups. And I learned a lot about adventure stuff. And I wound up traveling a whole bunch. Went to South America afterward and was down there for months and months and really enjoyed the experience. And then I came back here and became a raft guide for a few years and basically lived in a van, it
Mhm.
literally down by the river for like a few years. And I really enjoyed that experience. It was great. And it came to an end, I think, right about the time it should have. But that whole world and that whole experience of connecting with people and being out in nature and having a community.
Huge.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing else like it. You know, I did
Yep.
sports teams and stuff like that, maybe a little bit similar, but it's not the same because you're not like with those people all the time for like weeks or months or a week even, like whatever it winds up being. So yeah, I love that.
I have a question for you then. How do you see that moving forward? Because I have this theory that nothing is ever wasted. So I started out as a broadcasting major and then worked in radio for a while and then left that to go do all this other stuff. But like circling back around, here I am,
Podcasting
So
now.
how do you see that gift of really understanding nature, understanding facilitation, understanding integration, community? Like, how are you utilizing that now? Or like, what do you think you might want to do in the future?
Well, I have, facilitated groups online. I've done some stuff with coaching and stuff like that, like
Yeah.
group coaching. And then right now I have a comedy kind of group that I'm affiliated with. I'm kind of leading that and facilitating that.
Yep.
And I've had enough experience to where I know not to be a petty tyrant and like force people to do things and make everything obligatory or check this box or whatever, right? Like to kind of understand how people operate and how people work in a group and how they're motivated and vice versa. So I'm using it in that sense. In college I'm glad you asked that because I haven't thought about this in a long time. But in college, I was really big into music. Now I'm doing more comedy stuff. But I always wanted like a retreat center where like people could come out, make records, and art and stuff, and then be able to go down the river, go on a hike, go horseback riding, ride a four-wheeler, do like recreational activities and stuff while they were there. So something I actually kind of forgot about, but that could be.
Don't forget.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, like, just sit with this stuff because it's just a random idea on a plane that will come to you. And then you just have to be courageous. David R. Hawkins talks about the scale of consciousness in Power versus Force. And he says, everything tips at courage. So it's like, if you can just think like, I'm open, just tell the universe, like, what am I supposed to create today? What do you want me to do? How do you want me to show up today? And just be open and listen. The ideas will come to you. When something wants to be created, it drops down into human awareness. Elizabeth Gilbert, she wrote a book called Big Magic. She also wrote Eat, Pray, Love.
I love that book. I love
that.
that.
So she has 2 amazing TED Talks out there, but the one on Big Magic was like to me. She talks about how creativity lives outside of us and how it wants to like co-create with humans. So anything you create, it's not all about you. Like the idea came from somewhere, hence these acronyms and the books I wrote and like the retreats. Like I can't own those things. I'm just the material form that executes. But you can look throughout time and inventions have dropped down into people at the same time. Like Alexander Graham Bell didn't really just invent the telephone. Some dude in Europe, which I don't know what his name is, I'd have to go look it up. Literally at the same time, the idea came in, but it was like, who got it patented first? So this idea of living in flow, I thought I was like alone. Like, am I crazy? What the heck? Is this real thing? And then I'm listening to a podcast one night and there's a physicist who literally wrote a book called Living in Flow, talking about it from like this scientific perspective. And then I got on one of his group calls and there's a woman in Ireland who wrote a book about living in flow. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. These people all over the world grasping this concept that takes Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi's theory of flow states to like a new level. So it's not like, oh, I'm some genius and I thought of this. So whatever is meant to be created will come in. And if you can be open, then you can be the vessel to create it and bring it into the world.
Yeah, that's great. I definitely live that way. I'm a very like I Big Magic was a great book, and then The Artist's Way was one also that was very impactful for me. I still do morning pages every single day. I've done for
awesome
like 4 years now. So every once in a while I'll get a good one dropping in, and I try and just capitalize on whatever. It's kind of how I make videos and content as well on the channel. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna feel like I need to talk about this, so I'll just hit record on my camera and go to the whiteboard and start drawing stick figures. Like, here's how this works. So very much, I think my process is kind of similar to yours, and I love it. It's really confirming to actually hear.
Yeah, that's what I think. I'm like, who thinks like I need to do the podcast every Monday and Wednesday and this is the time and blah blah blah. Like when you put things in a box and you say this is how it has to be, you leave no room for creativity to
Mhm.
come in and be like, actually, oh, if you just loosen up on your idea a little bit or try this or go this way. So just that kind of free thinking I think is really needed today, especially because we do need to create so many new systems, circling back around to that idea, right? So it's like, where do you feel passionate and what new idea, like what would really make it better? Like no BS, what would make it better? And what is your part to contribute to that? And then just start there and other people will come in. You'll find the right people. I had no idea who would come into my life when I started these retreats. And I have met the most incredible people who have contributed to what it is today. It's not just all me sitting here doing this thing. I have so many people who have been a part of this process. And I knew they would come because they all came with the summer camp. I just started taking the most loving next step. And I'm like, okay, universe, work with me here. Help me. I don't want to have to do it all. Who, not how. Like, who can come into my life to help? Because I'm not an expert at this and don't want to become it. I'd rather someone who really loves this and is really good at this come in, and they would just come in. That's the synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences that just start to show up in your life. You're like, oh my gosh, this universe is magical. I have so many stories. I could go on and on about synchronicities. When you are living in flow, those synchronicities just start to happen and line up. The like miracle moments where you're like, how is this going to work out? And then it does. So beautiful when that starts to happen. You're like, thank you. Okay. There's something else out there. There's something else that's got my back. There's something on the other side of that veil that's like, Eva, go left. Oh no, you went right. It's okay. We'll come back around, Don't worry. Don't worry. You're not lost forever. I got you. But next time, go left, I'm like, okay, I'm trying to listen. There's a lot of noise out here.
Yeah, there is, but I can absolutely relate. Yeah, I mean, I've been doing events lately. That comedy show that I, promoted at the beginning of this podcast is kind of a new thing for me. It's
Yeah.
out away from here. It's like 6 hours. I just started doing comedy. I'm like, okay, well, I just want to do comedy. So I was having to drive to Atlanta to do open mics after the pandemic. There's nothing happening here where I live. And so I was just like, well, you know what? I'm just going to start doing my own shows. So I started doing open mics here. Those became showcases. Now I've got 3 rooms a week here in Athens. Now I'm adding shows in other cities. I'm booking bigger comedians. We're doing a comedy festival here. So it's starting.
Look at you.
Yeah, it just has snowballed into this thing. And like people coming out of the woodwork too, who see the potential and they're like, hey, I want to help. Can I do X, Y, or Z? And I'm like,
Mhm.
yes, you can. You 100% can.
Mhm.
I'll show you exactly how to do it. And just, let me go be a lunch haver and I'll get us, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'll get us going on some other things. But it's been super exciting. We're getting into digital content now in the comedy vein. And then I'm still doing the coaching and the self-help stuff, which is something I'm
Yeah.
very passionate about. But I also have burned out on it before. So I want
Yep.
to,
Have some balance.
have
Yep.
a little bit of balance with it. Right. Like
Yeah.
I'm not taking on 30 clients or something.
And do you know what I love about comedy and something that I've been saying so much to myself is like, I'm so serious. I take everything so seriously. Like when you work in this space of really trying to like help humanity level up or like the 5 people who are at this next retreat, whatever it might be, it's like, it's so things are so heavy for them. There's so much that's so heavy right now. So I keep saying like, oh, I just need to have fun. I just need to laugh. I just need to like tap back into that joy. So I can totally see where what you're doing, there's such a huge need for that because we've just lost it, especially over the last handful of years. Like where I remember watching comedy shows on TV as a kid growing up, like really like it was a thing like there and the just comedy maybe was a little bit different back then, so it's like probably even reinventing what comedy even looks like
Mhm.
today, like how that even shows up. But it's so needed for us to just go somewhere and just have fun, like what if we're gonna be here, we might as well serve through our essence, like make someone's life better and try to have fun doing it, because we can be so darn serious with everything. So thank
It's
you for making
so
people laugh.
Yeah, I do my best, but it helps to add a little bit of levity to this stuff because
Mhm.
it can be so intense and such a big deal. And, that's part of that whole like conspiracy mindset, which I have no problem with. Like, I mean, I've done the research. I'm not going to sit here and like argue, but at the same time, it's like the more that you just like sit in that energy and like bask in it, like you just are creating a limits for yourself. And it's
Yeah.
like we're talking about before, we have to create new things. The more that we fight the existing system, the more we're actually, reinforcing it. So that's not helping what it is that we want to, but then you could be the victim too and just be like, well, so and so they're the elite's just going to do what they're, well, so what? Like, let's just do what we're going to do. Like, whatever that winds up being, go in a retreat, run around the woods naked. I don't know, whatever you want, and then add what it is that you can, because like I try to
Mhm.
make these concepts and ideas palatable, a little bit easier to understand, because I know it can be so heady to read the Bhagavad Gita or even like wrestle with the Tao, which is like so like paradoxical,
Yeah.
or the Kabbalion, which gave me so much trouble trying to read it and understand these natural law principles. But it's like, this stuff's actually not that complicated. It's not hard to understand at all. It can be put in simple terms and we can actually enjoy learning about it and have fun with it. So that's just sort of been my approach. And
Yeah.
it's starting to happen to where like the spiritual world and the comedy world, because like for a long time they were compartmentalized for me. It's hard not to when you get into it, because you're like looking at comedy as like what's wrong with the world, and then looking at spirituality as like what's right with the world. But without the combination of both, I would have just been a toxic spiritual bypasser. You know what I'm saying? I would
Mhm.
have never been able to just acknowledge the truth of a situation and be like, yeah, this is brutal. Like this is
Yeah.
how I'm feeling. It's like what we're doing now has a lot to do with David Hawkins' map of consciousness. And a friend of mine and I have been going out and really pushing our boundaries and leaning into our fear and experiencing a lot. And what I've learned from him is it's like, it's not about always just feeling better. It's about feeling more. And it's
Mhm.
like, we'll go out and we'll engage and talk to strangers and approach people. And the things that come up are not things that you want to deal with. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
there are things that would come up on, like an ayahuasca type of session where you're like, oh boy. And then it just kind of floats up and you're like, oh man, how do I deal with this? Like I was out the other day and a girl, my friend was bragging on me and I was being like too humble. I was like, no, no, no. Like, what's the matter with you? You don't believe in yourself? And I was like, I felt like I got shot in the heart with an arrow. I was like, oh my God, because it made me stop in my tracks and be like, well, do I not believe in myself? And the truth of the answer is sometimes I don't, right? So it made me like evaluate that and try to be really honest. And that's where we're at in our exploration, is just really trying to open up. And so levity really helps because we can look back at these experiences and laugh. It's like, that was so funny. How about the time when you went up to that girl and she just straight up ignored you, pretended like you didn't exist? That is like the coldest thing anybody could ever do. Now it's funny. In the moment, savagely brutal. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
But that exposure, right? And you were talking about that kind of at the beginning of the show too, that we have this need to progress and move forward, but the therapists are like, listening to the same problem over and over again. The person needs to leave their job, they need to leave their, relationship, and they won't do it. It's because those emotions are keeping them
Mhm.
where they're at. They're not allowing themselves to experience what's beneath it. Because I think we have kind of two sort of counteracting motivations, right? Like we have these emotions that want to keep us safe. Like they're not bad. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with them. But it's like, we want to keep you safe. We want to keep you where you are on your balance point. This is where we're comfortable here. And then we have that intuition, that instinct that's like driving us like, no, we need to get to the next level. We need to do the next thing. We need to give our thing.
Mhm.
And so that's where I've been. And I've been, challenged by a lot, like to put on a bigger show outside of town and charge a lot more money for the tickets
Yeah.
and things like that. It's like, it is very there's a lot of stress and emotion. I could lose a lot of money on this show. But then somebody messaged me the other day and they were like, man, you're going to look back at this show and you'll be like, that was nothing. That was a tiny little show compared to this theater show or whatever it is. Right.
Yep.
And
Yep. Exactly.
that, just allowing those things to come up and be okay with it. And instead of fighting against the emotion, just like allow it to be there and then just continuing to move
So
forward.
I've got a question for you. Out of all the books that you have read, all the teachings, all the insights, all the spiritual stuff that you have been able to bring into your life, if you could impart like this is how I came up with my acronym for love. I said to the universe one day, if I had 5 minutes to talk to the whole world, what would you have me tell them? Like the whole world could understand. And then the word love popped in. I'm like, okay, yeah, tell me more about that. Cause that's so broad and vague. And that's when it said live open, value everything. And I was like, wait, what? So if you had, a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, like out of all the stuff that you've learned, if you could talk to everybody in the world, like what is the most powerful concept or idea that you would want people to know right now?
Well, I would say it's purpose, it's alignment. We have these two elements, like our heart and our mind, in the esoteric speak. And I did not realize with almost my entire life that the two things could agree. I was just like, well, you're either some creative, sloppy, poor artist, or you're some cookie cutter, corporate, person who works in a cubicle. The two, never the twain shall meet or whatever, right? But I learned a few years ago that the two can be in harmony. And then when they are in harmony, that's when you're the most charming, you're the most attractive. That's when your essence is really being exuded. And then you're on the path to your purpose. And that's what I really teach fundamentally, because I think that's really the first thing. If you don't know what you're here for, how the hell can I help you beyond that? Like, I can't help you implement systems if you're not sure what you're here to do. We got to figure that out first. So for me, purpose, and I rolled that in with a lot of different teachings that I've come and encountered over the years, from Steve Pavlina to Ikigai to the reality transurfing book, which is probably what I'm most known for. But he says in that book, whenever you identify your true goal, it turns your life into a celebration. It's not when you accomplish the goal, it's when you identify it. And so now you're on that trajectory, and that makes you feel joy and excitement to be alive, because you're giving your gift. And so if I had, 2 minutes, that would be my elevator pitch, is like finding that purpose, that reason for being, true goal, and aligning your heart and mind. That's really what that book is about. And it's really what all esoteric philosophy is teaching from.
That reminds me of the Heart Math Institute and heart brain coherence.
Yeah. That's really same kind of idea. Yeah. I remember that heart math.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I think like just intuitively when I lead meditations, I mean, really, I didn't even put it together until just one day, but it's really like, it's like your heart has to come up to your mind. It's not the mind dropping down into the heart. It's like starting with like your soul, your essence lives in the heart, in the center of your heart. And it's lighting that up and then connecting that to the mind and projecting that so you can see like what's the next step. But it comes from like this connection. Like I see our brains as like a library, like lots of bookshelves of information and stories and whatever, judgments, opinions, thoughts. But it's like, where's your heart right now? And like, what aisle are you going to go down? And what book are you going to pull? Or are you going to sit in the front and just open the window and just look out and look out into the horizon? But even just through breath, like connecting that space together and like seeing, like almost envisioning like light and breath, like breathing, like back and forth, like coming in and out of those two spaces, and then grounding that into the earth beneath you. Like I have people go to the center of the earth and pull the breath up from the center of the earth through their body, really illuminating their heart, and then taking that elevator. I say, take an elevator ride up to your mind, open the doors, or even out the top, and then connecting up to the ether. But there's a lot of science around the heart brain coherence and just breath, simple, calm, steady breath, and how that helps you to even be a better athlete. There's
Yeah.
Alan Watkins has a TED Talk out there, and he talks about how 6 deep breaths, 6 inhale, exhale. People are better at their sport. They'll make that shot. You know, they'll be able to kind of step out of the fear. So it's like the simple ways for us to just get into alignment and take that next step. So I love that you said that, because I feel like there's a lot of science around that, and the two are not separate. Spirituality and science, they are the same. We just haven't made the full bridge yet, but we're working on it.
Yeah, the way I like to think about it is like the heart is really the driver, you know, it's a rally car. And then the mind is the passenger reading the map, like, oh, we should go here to go this way, do this thing, the
Yes.
logistician. And then they work together in that way. But the heart should definitely lead and go first. That's where insight comes from. In the Transurfing book, he says the mind can only build structures out of existing bricks. So it's like you can take bricks and then reform them into stuff, but it doesn't get new ideas. The heart is what gets the new idea. Most of us have put the heart in a box throughout our life because we think, oh, we can't do that. That's not for us. You know, and he says the heart comes here for a toy. Like our heart is like a little girl in a toy store, and it's like, I want this toy. And then the mind is like this angry father. It's like, we can't have that. No, we don't deserve it. You know, you were, you know, whatever. And so that's kind of the dynamic that happens in most people's psyche.
Yeah.
You know,
I love that you said that, because after my last 5-MeO experience, the way that I was explaining to people, I was like, okay, imagine that we're all driving in a car and all the windows are muddy and you don't even know they're muddy. And we're like bumping into other cars, and sometimes we're sliding on ice, and sometimes we're like going up a hill. Like we're just moving through the world. When you take psilocybin, it's like a little bit of that window gets cleared off, and you can like, oh, there's that thing from 3rd grade. Let me make some peace with it. Or, oh, my mom did her best. You can like see things more clearly. And then there's other psychedelics like 5-MeO where you literally step out of the car and you're like, holy crap, there's a whole different way, But it's like clearing off the mud from the window so we can drive safer.
I love that. Yeah, it makes me think of a song. There's a really cool album, actually. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
It's called Akron Family. The name of the album is, that's the name of the band. The name of the album is Love is Simple. And there's the whole album is like it's like a sort of a modern, it's like a folk noise rock, kind of a Pink Floyd-esque kind of concept record.
Yeah.
All the way through. So it's great to listen to, especially, you know, if you're in a state like that, to go through the whole record. But there's one particular song on that record called There's So Many Colors. And it's just, it's like a chant. There's so many colors without the dirty windows. And
Yes.
I think you really like that record.
Yeah. Like, this is not my idea. This has been out here for a while, and it just like came to me from somewhere. Thank you, universe.
Yes.
I love that.
It's awesome. I think you might really like that album. It's definitely up the vein of having a full-on experience, right? Like all the way from tip to tail, and the message is right there too. It's
I think music is so freaking powerful. I think we're going to start to find out. People already know music is powerful, but I have felt it. I have seen it. Just when we make music intentionally and it's with the purpose of joy, of love, and it comes from this place of inspiration, like those songs last a lifetime. They can't look at the Beatles, right? Like the songs that just last and make people feel a kind of way and bring people together. When sometimes when I'm leading breath work or meditation, I'll play a song, and that's the thing that gets everyone like choked up and really helps them drop into their heart. It's not so much maybe even what I'm saying. It's like what I lead them to gets them to envision themselves being somewhere with people they love. And then all of a sudden the song comes in and it just changes the whole experience, and they feel something they have maybe not felt in a really long time. Music is such a healer. I can't wait for us to see and discover just how powerful music really is. There's even a TED Talk out there that talks about a frequency that can break up cancer cells. The guy's giving this TED Talk and he says, imagine children playing in a room together who are all living with cancer, and this frequency is just beaming into the room and they're just playing, and it's breaking up the cancer cells. Like, that's the future of really what we can do with sound. I think a lot of the churches in the old world, and even some around here in the United States, I don't think they were meant to be churches where we worship a God. I think they were healing facilities. I think that's like where you play the bowl or you sing, and they were built with this resonance that you feel kind of a certain way. And so I think that sound is so much more, and music is so much more than we understand. And it can also be used in the inversion, like I think we kind of live in the upside down right now. And a lot of the music, and you can see the whole music industry is kind of going up in flames, because it's just been inverted for so long. And we're coming out of all of that. And so music that can inspire, music that can drop people into their hearts and have them thinking really creatively and want to get out and run or connect or dance. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for what is coming.
Yeah, I love that. I think so too. Yeah, and I think I'm a huge fan of music. I was a musician way before I was a comedian. The two worlds could not be more different
Yeah.
between stand-up comedy and doing music.
Okay, but maybe you're going to bridge it. Maybe that's part of what you're supposed to do. Just
I think it
ponder that.
is. I think it
Ponder
is.
that. I
I
don't
think
know
it
what that
is
looks
for
like,
sure.
but you
For
be the
sure.
one to create it.
Yeah, no, that's the beauty of it. It's like, I guess it's anything, right? When people who are kind of in the beginning of something, maybe they're coming from a more lack mentality. They see things as competitive. People
Yeah.
who are, further along will not see it that way. They'll see it as collaborative and they'll work from that place.
Yes,
So I've seen
I
that
believe
experience
in
a lot.
co-collaboration. That's how we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be co-collaborative. I'm just supposed to do what I do well, and you're supposed to do what you do well. And like, let's just work together. I saw that when, working with kiddos impacted by HIV, I didn't understand why UCLA would hold information and then John Hopkins would hold information and they wouldn't share. It's like, are we trying to find a cure? Are we trying to really like come up with the thing here? Why are we not collaborating and sharing information? Because it had that competitiveness that I want the money. I want to be the one to claim this or that or have my name on it. It's like, that's just the old way. This co-collaboration is a new way. And I think there's something there for you. I think music and your comedy and bringing those two worlds together. Think about when you go to like Tony Robbins or whatever, right? They're all like playing this music and dancing on stage and like getting the audience all hyped up, and then they give their motivational talk. It's like they incorporate music and in a kind of way. Well, maybe there's a way to incorporate that, and maybe you need to do it outdoors. Maybe that's like your nature aspect. Maybe your comedy show needs to be like at Red Rocks or something like that.
That sounds fine. I would love that.
Let's manifest that for you.
Yeah, it sounds good to me. Yeah, I'm with that. And then, yeah, we can collaborate and do some music stuff too. I love that. I don't think what's better than like laughing your ass off and then dancing your ass off until the, sun comes up. Like, I don't think there's really a better night, as far as programming goes.
Yeah. And you're so good at bringing people together and creating cohesiveness. Like, dream big, my friend. Like, what would be an ultimate experience for someone? It's right there. It's like literally waiting for you just to like pluck it and just say, okay, I'll give it a try. Let's see what happens.
I love it. Yeah. How did you connect with Brandon?
I've just been listening to his podcast, and it's like I listen to so much stuff. I'm open to like whoever, whatever. And a friend of mine who came to my retreat to help out started sending me, like, I was already listening to him, and then she's like, oh, you got to listen to this one. Oh, you got to listen to this one. She lives in Austin.
Okay.
And
I'm going to be in Austin next month.
Okay, I got to hook you up with her. She's incredible human. She's very, very connected in the healing spaces and stuff. And so she was up in Oregon and drove back to Austin. So she listened to like podcast after podcast. And when she sent me one of his podcasts, I was like, I need to reach out to this guy. I need to see about getting on his podcast. And so I just sent him a message like, I want to be on your podcast. Do you want to have me? you know? And then we chatted and he's like, okay, I've got other people for you to meet. And he's such a good connector.
He
He
is
started connecting
amazing.
me like, hey, Eva, talk to this person, talk to this person. And so I see that co-collaboration. Like, thank you, Brandon. What a beautiful experience. And just to know someone who's so open and willing, who's not like, oh, these are my connections. I know these people. It's like,
Right.
oh, here, meet this person, and then leaves the ball in your court. If you do something with it, you do something with it. If you don't, you don't, so I'm super grateful.
Yeah, me too. It's great. Every time he connects me with somebody, I follow up because he and we have the type of relationship too, where I could probably just, if I could call him right now and maybe get him, Operation Cold Call, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Oh,
there's only a few people.
there's times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I have like something will come to me, like something like really out there woo. Like I had this whole idea about Atlantis and the moon and whatever. We don't have to go into it. But I'm like, who can I tell about this? Like, who will actually sort of understand? I'm like, I know, Brandon. So I'll send him like a voice message. Like I was sitting in a Whole Foods parking lot at one of my retreats. And I'm like, I just have a minute. I have to say this idea to someone. I don't know what you think about it. I could be crazy. And I'll just like send it off to him because it's like, he can hold the space. I know he whatever. And he's like, that's great. Thanks so much for sending that over. He's so nice. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. Yeah, Austin keeps coming back up for me. It's weird. I was having dreams about it, and then I was out there in April, and then now I'm going back again in almost this
Okay.
month in a couple of weeks. So, but yeah, let's definitely connect on some people and all that good stuff and
Yeah.
stay in touch. I have had such a good time chatting with you. I really appreciate you coming on, and I'm glad we did it this time and didn't try to fight through the
Oh yeah.
the
Yeah.
phone.
That would not have been good. I'm way better on my game today. So
Yeah,
thank you.
no,
I
absolutely.
appreciate your patience and grace and
No, great energy. Thank you. And I'm just really excited
yeah.
to have connected, and we'll continue to build from here. I love how big your vision is. That's one thing I've got to do is expand mine.
Yeah,
It's
why
crazy.
not?
Yeah. Well, in
You
the moment, it's like this thing seems like a big deal, and it's like my
yeah.
friend said, it's like, dude, you're gonna look back on this and you're gonna be like
Yeah.
laughing about it.
Begin with the end in mind. One of the Coveys, it's one of
Yeah,
the principles, right? So like
that's a good
make
one.
the end really big. So that's why I'm like, okay, SoFi Stadium meditation. Like, I don't know if I'll get there or not, but then who do I have to be today? What am I creating today to be good enough that thousands of people would want to show up to like listen to what I have to say, which I don't never know. I make it up in the moment. And so yeah, it's just begin with a big dream, just start and then allow that dream to mold, because sometimes your big dream is, like you said, not as big, but it just needs to like expand. Like you just got to like trust that you can do it. But why not? I mean, who the heck knows what's next after this? Nobody really knows. Like we're all being just real honest, we're all just making it up. Nobody really knows. And
True.
so why not live this life to its fullest? Like freaking dream big and go for it. You're not going to be disappointed. Don't have that regret on your last breath, like shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Yes,
Just do it. Just freaking go for it. And if you
I
fail
love it.
along the way, who cares? At least
You
you tried.
will. It's fine. No,
For
that's the
sure.
beauty of it. It's going to happen some, but who cares? Yeah, like you said, who cares? Just get up and
Yeah.
keep
You
keep
care more than
moving.
anybody else. Like anyone
That's
else
so
is going to be
true.
like, oh, well, he tried and didn't work out. Okay.
Oh,
And then they're off to the next thing,
right, right,
like
right.
they don't care about you as much as you think. So get over
No, it's so
yourself
true.
and move
Yeah,
on and keep trying.
I love it. So good. So good, Eva. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, I can attest Eva's meditations are great. Definitely go check them out. I have her link tree in the description of the video. Also, we'll have it on the podcast feed. Click on that. Go check out her stuff. Anything particular you want to kind of launch out there that people should check out first, or that you're most excited about?
I just want to tell people to follow their own intuition. My goodness. If you click on something, if you're like, yeah, I'll go do that. And then you click on it and something catches your eye, go follow that until it doesn't anymore. Like whether it's with me or anyone else, like just keep listening to your intuition. Keep following that hunch, and life will unfold in miraculous ways.
Damn, I love that. We'll leave it there. Thanks, everybody, so much for hanging out with us live. And be sure to go check out Eva's stuff. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. And we'll see you next time.